So, this week we are going to take what we've learned about observational drawing and add some imagination into it. So, we are getting ready to head into your final project. And my hope for this week is that it's a little bit of a brain break, something fun, something to get out of what we've been doing and change it up a little bit. So, observational drawing or art making is what we've been looking at this whole time. And, there's so many different ways people create observational art. And there's so many different ways people create all kinds of art. And there's new ways being invented as we speak. So these are just some styles based on observation of the natural world. Of course, there are more, but just so you can start to learn some of these words and understand what they mean. So representational art versus non-representational art, right? So representational art styles are like a subject matter that you can recognize. It's representing something in our observable reality that everybody with sight knows that this is an apple, this is a person. So realism or naturalism is an accurate representation of the observable world. It was also a specific literary and art movement. So it kind of can mean either of those things, depends on the context. Idealization is an image of perfection, which is usually created in terms of what the current social and cultural tastes are. Sometimes portrait artists, they'll leave out blemishes. Now we have Photoshop for that. So there's the ideal a photoshopped image of a model or any person, or a filter is an idealization, right, of the image. It's not the realism, it's not the naturalism, it's not what that person actually looks like. I could probably go on about this forever. I think it's interesting, but just thinking about how that was in the past in painting and drawing and how it is now in photography and social media and stuff. And then illusionism is extremely detailed and accurate. It's depicting our observable reality, and it's creating the illusion of physical reality. So like we've been talking about, looking at a three-dimensional object or subject and making it look three-dimensional on the two-dimensional space, on the piece of paper or the canvas or whatever it is. So a draftsperson is another way to say artist, or because you don't say drawer. A person who draws is not a drawer. Excuse me. In New York, we call the drawer where you put your keys and stuff, we call it a drawer. So I have a hard time saying the word drawer. And I'm just going to keep going. So we say draftsperson instead. A draftsman, a draftswoman, a draftsperson is a person who draws instead of a drawer. So this person, the draftsperson, is going to study the object from all different angles. And even if you're not drawing the back of something, the reason observation is so important is because to understand the three-dimensionality of it, you do have to understand the back of it and how it's turning in space. And so seeing something in real life is the best way to learn how to depict it, even on a two-dimensional surface. So I want you to think about how you view the world and how do you want to express that, in what way, what kind of realism, representational or non-representational way do you want to represent your observable world? So we're moving more into, we've learned all these techniques, and now towards the end of the term, we're moving more into where you get to put your style, your imagination into it. And I want you to start to think about what you want to create and what you want to see in the world, the art you want to see in the world. This is Maria Sibylla Merian. She was born in 1647 Frankfurt was its own city-state, but now it's part of Germany. So she really did not pay attention to the conventions of her time. And as a woman, it was very unusual that she would do these kind of scientific drawings. She also traveled to South America, which was very unusual for a woman of her time to do from Europe. So she is a really interesting character. There are so many books about her. If you're into this kind of stuff, I really encourage you to learn more about her, and her daughters also helped her create her work. So before there was photography, scientists drew what they saw. So these were scientific drawings of new plants and insects. Well, they were new to the European people. Obviously, they weren't new to the people of South America. And she went there to study them and bring this information back for other scientists. So think about any science textbooks that you have that you see drawings of and illustrations of today. You know, medical illustration is a job that some artists have. You know, it's easier to have an illustration pointing out certain things sometimes than an image of the real thing, which would be maybe kind of messy. So illustration is still used in the sciences, and I think it's a really cool blend of art and science together. These drawings that this woman made are just exquisite. They're drawn with watercolor, and take a look if you want to see more of her stuff. She has some, people have made cool books of her work. Okay, this is Dina Brodsky, a contemporary artist. I actually went to school with her. We got our master's degree together. We were in the same class, and she makes these beautiful paintings and drawings of nature. So she is observing nature and recreating it, you know, in all its beautiful glory. And she does these really, really detailed work. You can check out her website, and she has a pretty active Instagram too. So she makes really cool stuff. A lot of detail. I think now that you've been drawing, you can recognize how long something like this might take. Okay, imagination. So when you're using your imagination in art or anything else, it's beyond reality, right? Outside of what you see in the world around you. It's creating something unique, and this is about your personal imagination. It's your individual imagination. And I'm not saying that you don't need imagination to create realistic, observable artwork. Obviously, you have to create a composition. You're choosing what to leave in and leave out. That's all very imaginative. But this is the subject matter just coming out of your imagination. So there's a lot of different styles. We call them abstract art styles or non-representational sometimes. It's not lifelike. Abstract art is not lifelike. You can use subjects from your memory or that you see in real life, but they're altered, distorted, elaborated, transformed, so it changes the observable reality. And the reason I keep on saying the word observable reality is because some people's realities are in their imagination, right? Their imagination might be very real to them, especially I think of people who write novels. You know, those characters exist for them in their imagination. So instead of just saying reality, I think adding the word observable reality is that distinction I'm creating. So non-representational art versus representational art, it's not depicting anything that exists in our observable reality. It's non-objective. It's not recognizable as something that exists in nature. Then we have expressionism, which is something that's exaggerated, and it's also depicting the artist's emotions and feelings. So you're expressing your feelings. And surrealism is another really popular form. So it does have realism in there, right? But it's using imagery from dreams to depict stuff outside of our observable reality, to create a new reality, right? Like a dream world or an alternate world. And I think of, fantasy and science fiction. This all goes into surrealism too, and it has expanded so much over the years. So I'm really hoping that you start to think about your personal form of expression, how you want to create artwork. And I want you to experiment with a lot of styles and feel like you have some ownership and creative control in this project. And we're thinking about how observation and imagination are used together. So this is Odilon Redon, French artist, and he was a surrealist artist. So we can see there are some things that we all recognize in observable reality, namely like the landscape or the hot air balloon, but then other things are added that don't make sense, right? They're not what you would see in real life. So it's surreal, beyond the real. And these were a lot based on dreams, I believe. This is Natalia Gonkarova, a Russian artist, and these are non-representational. I would call them non-representational. They're not representing anything that we see in our observable reality. I can't make out anything, and maybe you can, what humans do is they try to see something in the abstraction, right? Like on the left, I could almost see like a wolf howling at the moon because there's like an eye shape in there, but that's not, this drawing is called electricity. So that's not what it's about. But I think as humans, we try to find something that we recognize in our observable reality. We're always trying to make sense of things. Okay, this is Dorothea Tanning. She was an American artist. She only passed in 2012, so she was alive sort of recently. And these are more surrealism drawings, which I think are a really cool combination of stuff we know in reality, but combining it or organizing the composition in a way that couldn't happen in reality, right? This is Eva Hess, and this is another example of non-representational art. They're stuff that we don't see in reality, and even though our brains might try to make them into something, but they're completely non-representational and abstracted. This is Stephen Zat. I'm not even going to try. I'm so sorry. This is an Austrian artist who's still living today. I actually found this work on Pinterest, just scrolling through artwork on there. And I think it's so interesting. It's pencils from 2018, I think. And he's using scale and proportion and then combining these things from observable reality, a house and a tree, right? And maybe sometimes trees grow into abandoned houses like this, but I don't think the house would still have a roof and all this stuff. And the house is a little off, right? The doorway is really tall and narrow. And then we have a anthropomorphized fox swinging on the tree and a very small person on the bottom. And then these tall castles. So they're all pieces of it that are from observable reality, but they're changed and the scale and proportion are adjusted in a way that we would never see this in reality. So that's where the imagination part comes in. Okay, so your project, your observation/imagination drawings, you're gonna combine imagination and observation. First, you're gonna find a place that you're going to observe in real life. This will be the setting of your drawing. So it can be a landscape, it can be a room, it can be a street or a cityscape, anything that you want. It should be like the landscape drawings that we did, or like the perspective drawings. It should be a place that you can visit in real life, that you can observe in reality, and you can take a photo for reference if you want. Then you're going to think of an imaginary object you're gonna put into this place. It can be from a dream, a memory, it can be from a fictional story that you've read, and you're gonna sketch it without looking at anything. You do not have to show this sketch to anybody, but I want you to just sketch it first, just from your imagination. So the imaginary object can be a plant. If you're thinking science fiction, maybe it's a plant that exists on another planet. Think of what that would look like in your imagination. It could be a structure like a castle, like the castle tower we just saw. It can be a tool like a magic wand or an event, and that I'm thinking of fantasy books, or an invention that would exist in the future. I'm thinking of science fiction, or anything else that you can conjure up. And I get a lot of my stuff from books because I'm a big reader, but it can be from anything. It could be from TV shows, video games. You can start to think of where how other people have created these imaginary objects. So once you get the sketch from your head, then you're going to use Google Images if you need to find a reference to help refine the drawing of your object. To be very clear, you are not copying the Google Images. You're just using it to help you like flesh out what is actually in your head and get it down on paper. And the last thing you're going to do is you're going to draw your imagined object in your observed place. So you're combining these two things together, and you're integrating the object in the place by using the same kind of line work and the same shading, the same material, so it looks like the imaginary object belongs in your observed place. I am here to help you. If you have questions about this, you can always ask. And remember, this is meant to be a fun project before we get started on your finals. So don't stress about it. I want you to have fun with it. And it's just a way, it's a brain break. It's a way to get out of your head a little bit. It doesn't have to be finished. It doesn't have to feel like this amazing finished drawing. It's just practice getting you out of your head. It's like an exercise. So let's move on to the demo. All right, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time demonstrating this project because you can really make it whatever you want. It's meant to be a fun, relaxing project to give your brain a break before the final. But I will show you basically how I would do the steps of it if I were doing the project, and then you can decide how you want to finish it on your own. So the first thing is to find a place, a location, a room, a landscape, a cityscape that you can actually observe. So this is going to be the location and the observe part of your observation, imagination, drawing. So I have this image here of this little cottage that I've always wanted to draw. So I'm just gonna do a sketch, and I'm making these like thumbnail compositions just because this is how I'm working out my ideas. And I wanna make sure to get this. I love this plant or vine or whatever it is living in here. So, and this sweet little window. So that's basically, I'm just thinking about what my composition will be, and I think I would add trees in here and stuff, but it's from observation, okay? So this is the location. And then the next part is that you're thinking about an imaginary object. So this is the imagination part of the drawing. And for mine, since this cottage I was looking at is kind of whimsical, I wanted to create a magic wand, right? That's what's from my imagination. Even though it's a thing that we can see in reality, it's my imaginary object. So just from my imagination, I'm thinking of a magic wand like this. And my favorite tree is a birch tree. So I'd want to make it look like how birch trees have these kind of things on them that almost look like black eyes and against the white bark. So I think that looks really cool. So that's step one. Step two. So this is me drawing the wand without looking at anything. And then step three is optional, but if you want to, you can go to like Google Images and look up an image of a wand and your imagination object, imaginary object. And I wanted to do that because I wanted to see how some of these, I knew I had seen some online that looked like twisted. And I thought that's really cool, but I didn't know how to draw that from my imagination. So I'm gonna make it add a little twisting on here to make it look like that, and then get the whole shape down. So now I'm just refining my imaginary object. And yours can be anything. It can be abstract, it can be abstracted, exaggerated, it could be something non-representational like a pattern. You can really do whatever you want. It can be a plant, and these are the little eye shapes. Okay, and then the fourth part I would do is putting it all together and having my observation image, and I'm gonna have my little cottage. The roof's actually going this way, so I was looking funny. And my window, let me get the window in first. I'm gonna skip the fence, so I'm gonna kind of choose how I crop it. And what I noticed about this is that the curtain in the window, there's a curtain here, and it's just pulled to the side like someone is peeking out. So I was thinking I could have the wand poking out of the window. So I don't have to draw the person, right? So we're in a beginning drawing class. I'm not expecting you to draw the hand or the person. That's some of the hardest stuff to draw. But since there's a curtain here, I can draw, and just make the part of the window darker. I can draw the wand kind of poking out from the curtain. And so, and here's my plant that I loved, the whole reason I loved this. And this kind of has this twisting feeling too, the same way as my wand did, which I just noticed. Maybe that's why I picked it out. I'm just gonna get my composition, and so I make sure I get the plants that I want in here and I have the wand in the right place. And then these are all gonna be bushes. Okay, so I want the wand sticking out of here. I'm looking at this picture that I made, and I'm imagining maybe someone's hiding behind here. So this would be my composition. And then you could go another step, which you know how to do by finishing it off with shading and value. Maybe that's not the right size. I would have to make it a little smaller. So maybe I would blow this up a little bit, and then when I'm on a bigger piece of paper, it would be easier. And then I was thinking I could have some kind of magic happening from the edge of the wand, like stars or something that would show maybe this person wielding the wand is doing it to grow plants. So maybe it would show the wand helping the plants to grow. And that's why there's all these lovely flowers. I don't know, you can make up a story in your head. Sometimes that helps make it more realistic. That still is very large for the size of the window, so I'm having trouble making it smaller and getting the detail in. So I'm just gonna go, it probably would be more like that size, and that would still be big if a person was in there. And maybe that I could have this flower as something that was growing, and that could be part from my imagination too. So this is what I'm talking about, combining the two: observation image, your imagined object, your observed location, and putting them together. And then I would make a larger drawing. So this is just how I would think about it. And then I would put it together in a larger drawing and finish it. So you have a lot of choice for this. I want you to have fun with it. It doesn't have to feel like a super finished drawing, but I do want it more finished than just a thumbnail. You know what to do at this point, and have fun with it.